All right.
Anybody hear me?
Yeah, I think I'm recording.
I can hear you.
All right.
Anybody hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes,
can hear you,
Cal, we
Cal.
can
We
hear
just,
you.
we just can't see
Thank
you.
you. Yeah, video's not working, but audio is. Sorry, guys.
It's okay. All right, Chris, you have the floor, my friend.
Fantastic. Thanks, Irmos. Yeah, and really, I'm so grateful. I appreciate you reaching out to me on LinkedIn and making this connection. It's just amazing to see you and a lot of people that I actually recognize from LinkedIn. It's amazing how that platform is kind of bringing people closer all over the world. But nonetheless, my name is Chris Jordan. I'm the founder of CLJ Advisory, and our company basically helps financial advice professionals all over the world, really mostly U.S. and Canada, develop referral-based partnerships with CPAs and attorneys. And I think we probably do that better and faster than probably any other coach in the industry. And I don't say that as it like I'm competing or as a comparison, right? But I kind of want to just give you just some framework where we saw a lot of mindset around this topic was if I get a one or two good CPAs, I'm good, right? Or in New Jersey, we say I got a guy, right? They say I got a guy, right? But it's like, and that's kind of like, so a lot of financial advisors focus on the one or two relationships, and if they get them, then they're good. So while so like three or four is being taught, we saw, but we're actually teaching 12 to 15. And now don't be alarmed by that, but when you look at the reasons for having four or five different accountants, four or five different attorneys, four or five different real estate professionals, like, you can easily have 12 to 15 people refer you business every year. And I'll get into some of that perhaps through our Q&A and with what I'm going to share you. But just some quick background is, I've been in the industry since the year 2000 is when I started working at a company called Smith Barney Citigroup in New York City. And I was basically a wholesaler on different desks and inside wholesaler, outside wholesaler, selling hedge fund, mutual fund products, annuity products to people like you all over the country here in the United States. And but what I saw was that back in 2016, I started to see this disconnect where the top financial advisors that made seven figures and above in their take home compared to all the others, the top advisors did this really well, but most of them struggled. In fact, most of them said it doesn't work. Oh, I keep giving referrals, I don't get in return, and you name it. I don't have to go through all that you could probably understand. But so that's where the company launched, right? So I started a company where we just went out and started interviewing more accountants, interviewing attorneys, interviewing RIAs, and dozens of them, and this whole curriculum started to form. And we put out an online course back in 2018, 19. We launched that, and man, people actually bought it. Meaning, we saw the market was seeing value in this idea that, man, we could just start a business where we just help financial advisors work with CPAs. And since then, we've worked in group trainings. We do large webinars, hundreds of people on a call like this, in-person events at conferences, one-on-one coaching, that sort of thing. But nonetheless, but since we started really training groups back in 2022, as far as we know, we've been able to help about advisors attract about 80 million of assets just from CPA and attorney referrals. And that's really, it's probably a lot higher than that, but that's what we know. So, but we're looking to grow that number. But anyway, that's where we're at. The question, I guess, for today is, how do we do this? So what I'll do is maybe we'll get some Q&A later. I don't know, Irma, if you want to do that, but I'll share my screen and I want to give you really just kind of 12 main points. And don't be alarmed by the number 12 because this topic is so broad. But I'm going to give you kind of 12 different or main points that I think if you really just apply, if you digest them, and really there could just be one of these points that can literally add a zero to your income. It just takes one idea, like one idea to go from six to seven figures. So I'm going to share my screen and I want to give you some of these 12 points. All right. All right. So the main point of me going through these 12 keys here is I want you to believe that COI referrals are the number one best way to attract high net worth and grow your business. But also, if there's any doubt on this call whether or not you can do it because of your past experience, we want to just shatter that right now. So one of those 2 points is what we're going for. All right. So point number one, I'd say it's less about what you do, but how you think, right? So when I started this company, the question that I would get so often, Chris, what do I say on LinkedIn to cold call this CPA, right? And don't raise your hands if you said that. But that was the kind of question that I was getting so often. And mind you, I'm fresh off like massive amounts of interviews with different, like talking to accountants, talking to attorneys and advisors that do this well. And none of them are talking about this. None of them are talking about cold calling on LinkedIn or even cold call. It's so far from their mindset. But I saw that the industry was like, what do I do, right? What do I say? What do I do? And I will tell you, it's more about how you think. Meaning, if you think it takes a long time to get a referral from a COI, then absolutely it will, right? If you think it takes 4 years to build a relationship, oh, and because someone has you've heard someone say, oh, it's going to take 2-3 years to build a relationship. You're already kind of starting off on the wrong foot. So it's more about how you think about these relationships, and we can really just spend 30 minutes almost right there on this one, quite frankly. But it's less about what you do, but more about how you think. The second concept that if you want to succeed and you want to build a large COI network, you have got to embrace the client first attitude. And this is this is an interesting one because if you look at all of our brochures or your brochures, and especially if you're not independent, when you work at these large wirehouses, these large big companies, and marketing spends so much money on the great brochures, and it talks about has a picture of a nice retired couple on it, and and you actually as the advisor, you believe your client focused, like that's what you actually believe because you drank that message, right? And you would all say that, but there's a difference with it getting in your heart, and when you approach the CPA, they can tell, right? It's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to actually believe it. And because when you approach that account, when you approach that attorney, especially if you're going to do a cold, right? And I don't recommend that, but they can tell if you're client focused, and because and the accountant's perspective is they're really about the ones that are good. And when you start with them, they are about serving client well. So if you can get your heart to match what they believe, even subconsciously, again, this can go so deep. I don't want to even go there on this call, but if you can get your mind and get your heart around the client first attitude, it'll come across in your language when you meet them. Number three is say no to prospecting and yes to partnership. Now, just if you think about CPAs, if you think of this as prospecting, like you do as clients, I'd say you're starting off a few seconds behind after the gun. I want you to think more about this is a partnership. So let's say here you are, right? You want to grow a network. You've got no CPAs that refer you, no attorneys that refer you. You're starting from zero, and you say to yourself, all right, I need 4 or 5 good partners that I can work with on behalf of my client. You start to develop this partnership mindset, and you shift. Is a mental shift that goes from the prospecting mindset to a partnership mindset. And again, subconsciously, even in your whole posture, you just come across differently when you have a partnership mindset. Number 4, I would say, is always look to develop professional trust. Now, this goes against the most common statement that I hear is that, hey, I give referrals. I've given so many referrals, but I haven't gotten any in return. I've heard that. You wouldn't believe how many times. Um, I would say if you can erase that from your brain for a moment and just simply always look to develop professional trust, not just trust, but professional trust. I just put out a video. I interviewed an RA and an attorney. I put it on LinkedIn. Some of you may have seen it this morning, but check out the YouTube. If you go to my profile and check out the full YouTube video, the RA that I interviewed, he talks about the professional trust concept. It's a great point, but you want to always be looking for ways to develop professional trust, which is different than just taking someone out for coffee or going golfing, right? Number five is you got a question, Ermos?
Yeah, can you go back again to number
Yeah,
four? Because I get
yeah,
this a lot from my advisors. If I give a whole bunch of referrals, then somehow automatically I'm going to get them back. Now,
yeah.
you specifically mentioned build professional trust. Can you give one or two examples of how you can build professional trust, as opposed to just, hey, here's a bunch of referrals, then eventually they'll feel obligated to give me a referral? Because that I don't want to say it never happens, but there's no guarantees because I've lived that life where I gave people tons of referrals and I got nothing in return. And there was other scenarios where I was getting referrals and I wasn't even giving them referrals. So I know that the whole reciprocal thing, although for the most part should be true, isn't always true.
Yeah, so on point, right? So I'm talking to a large firm in Charlotte, North Carolina, $1 billion and above AUM. So I was talking to one of their team members, and I asked him this question. I say, "What do y'all do for CPAs to like develop trust? Like, what do you do?" And you know what his answer was? He said, "Whatever they need." And then check this out. For you all, I went a step further. This is years ago. I didn't even realize I was doing this research for you all today on this call. But this is years ago. Over in Raleigh, I live in the Raleigh area, North Carolina. I met with his assistant. So they're based in Charlotte. His assistant office manager is in Raleigh. I go into the office in Raleigh and I'm talking to her and I'm saying, what are y'all doing with these accounts? So things she's like, yeah, we do whatever they need, we get it. Like so tax documents, different types of client information, right? And this is just one way is to simply ask a CPA, what do you need that I can do, or what can I do that might prevent any delays in your clients in our clients' tax filing, or what information can I get to you that would add value to you, that would make your job easier. You make a note of that and you start to do it. So, and that right there, it's a professional activity. It's just one, right? There's so many, but that one there is an example of to develop professional trust, right? But that's the key, right? So forget reciprocity, but you also want to take time to identify your value, right? And this is another key that I see that is overlooked so often is because you've gone through training back, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and you've learned your elevator pitch and you've learned your statement, right? That you kind of have, maybe some of you have it canned or memorized, maybe some of you just wing it. But I would say it's worth taking time to identify your value. Meaning, I mean, we do this in our training. We train a group. We literally have like an exercise. Like, in fact, day one typically is walking through your value and literally writing things down, right? So, what kind of clients do you work with? What are the dollar amount? And what do you do for them? And what do you do differently than others, right? Other advisors in your area. So when you take a moment and identify what that is, and then have the meeting, as opposed to just kind of winging it, right? But then you have to learn how to effectively communicate it. Now, this is huge because you can spend. If we ask everyone on this call, give me your value proposition, or we say, well, what do you do? But there'd be a range of answers. Some would answer about maybe 10, maybe as low as 10, 15 seconds. Others might talk for 2 minutes. And understand that in today's time, 2025, attention spans are very short. So there's a way for you to communicate your value, right? That literally just connects with that CPA or that attorney. And you can do that. And you don't have to use a whole lot of words. All right. So you want to just learn how to effectively communicate that. I'm going to pause for a moment. And just see, are there any questions, by the way? Kind of, I know we're kind of about halfway through. If there's any questions, feel free.
Not really a question.
You,
Well, pretty
yeah.
much you kind of addressed it already. And I actually spoke with Ermels this morning because I recently, well, I'm working on forming a partnership with a CPA. And I referred him two clients recently. One didn't pan out properly, but the other, he's working on it. And obviously, the way I see myself working with someone, I don't like asking for business. I like to give, 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 so that eventually, when there's an opportunity, they see that I provided value that I'm expecting them to refer. But like we said, it's not always the case. Um, but yeah, I just thought I'd mention that it's something that I'm also going through as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You're
Yeah.
not alone, and what we learned just this is a matter of having a great understanding of the attorney's perspective, the CPA's perspective, and when you can almost put yourself in their shoes, you can respond better. You can your activities with that relationship are better when you kind of can just put yourself in their shoes for a moment. Andy, go
Mhm.
for it, man.
Yeah, so coming off of what Fabio just asked, what's your stance on the whole idea of don't ask, don't get in that context?
Yeah, that's a good one, right? And I think it's a case by case. But I'm more like I'm more so I'm a focus guy. And I encourage you all to, I think focus is just so important because there's so many things that can distract you. So with that said, if I'm focused on my client, number one, and I'm focused on doing a good job for them, and then also I'm focused on developing good partnerships for the benefit of my client and then I'm focused on in that again in this whole lane right now. As a result, I'm creating a larger network of people that I can trust for my client. By default, the referrals come. The asking, I see the asking come when there's too few potential referral sources to work with. Like so, for example, if an advisor has like you know, one person, all right, or two people that they've given referrals to, or and they met with them and they met with them. And let's say they never asked and they've never taken the time to build a third, fourth, fifth, and even a bigger net. If they're not focused on building a bigger network, yeah, they're gonna at some point they're gonna feel like, man, I need to ask. And there's ways to do that, and you can have posture. I'm not totally against that, but I'm more about let's focus on the client and building a large network first, and let's just watch what happens. That's kind of where I'm at.
Hey, can I chime in for 30 seconds here? I actually owned three tax offices for 3 years, and what I can tell you is that I used to, before I owned the tax offices, I didn't understand how ridiculously busy accountants are during tax season. And I used to think, because that's when I was getting my inquiries and I'd want to have a meeting with them. Hey, can we get together? And they're like, yeah, no. Right. And I'm thinking, these guys are pricks. And the bottom line is when you have 10 weeks in which to make all your annual revenue for some of them, they just are really, really, really busy. So just adding weight to the fact, if you can get them whatever they want really, really quickly, and throwing a word, hey, and like when I'm dealing with them, I let them know I've been through this. I did three tax seasons. I own three tax offices at the same time. I totally get it. And then all of a sudden you have some common ground. So obviously not everybody can do that, but just I totally get this. I think, can we get together in June? Right. I don't know how the US tax season works. It's somewhat lined up with ours, but it's like, don't be turned off because a whole bunch of us are going to want to run out and do this with CPAs, accountants, whatever, and you're going to get the cold shoulder right now. You are so going to get the cold shoulder. They do not have time. So just understand that. Don't think, oh, he's full of shit. Chris is full of shit. Nobody wants to talk to me. For the next 2 months, nobody is going to want to talk to you. Totally.
It's a good
Good
point.
point, man. Good point. So true.
That is a great point. So, quick question. Um, how do you, or what's the best way of continuing to develop the relationship with the CPA that has given you business that you're friends with? He gets it. What are some strategies or some thoughts of continuing the relationship? We've passed referrals back and forth.
You're assuming that you're saying that you already kind of have a back and forth
So
referral
I
relationship.
have two or three really good relationships where
Yeah.
we have passed referrals back and forth. They
Oh,
trust
great.
us. We haven't
Yeah,
screwed
just
them. They haven't screwed us, kind of a thing. And
Dave, congratulations, man. You're part of the minority.
thank you.
Congratulations. Seriously, because so at this point now we're just deepening personal trust, right? And I would say first and foremost, make sure that you're meeting them at least 4 times a year, right? In our general trainings, our generic trainings, I've got a slide that says once a year, and I think even in our course, like we interviewed an RIA, he said once a year. But I've learned that the truth is, and Ermos, I'll give your people the truth. It's people that get referrals from accountants consistently, and a lot of them, they are meeting them at least 4 or 5 times a year, and they're talking to them multiple times. Some of them are once a month, right? So at this point, Dave, it's probably easier. It's just a matter of you don't really have to prove anything. They already see you as a professional. They can trust you professionally. It's just a matter of now, how can I deepen that personal relationship? Dinner, lunch, coffee, 4 times a year, different events, client events. You can invite them to social. It's real simple at that point.
I think Chris touched on something that I'm just going to add as well, in case it was missed at the very end there. I know advisors I mean, at the end of the day, a really good COI is more valuable than any of your clients, right? I don't care if you got a client with $10 million. If you got a COI that's referring you an extra 2 or 3 million every single year or more, they're far more valuable than any of your clients. So I would highly encourage that if you're having a client appreciation event and you're spending money on your clients, I mean, it's so easy to just invite your COI or COIs, right? Because now they get a chance to kind of spend time with you. They're showing, you're showing them some love and you're just deepening that relationship. And all you're doing is just encouraging more and more referrals. But most advisors don't look at their COIs as a potential, or they don't treat them like their best clients. And all I'm saying is treat your COIs like you would your best client, at least the ones that are referring people to you.
So
Nick, you
true.
have a question?
I think Brooks has had his hands up too for a while.
Yeah.
Nick gets.
Yeah, sorry. No, this is great, Chris. And so I kind of like two questions for you. One is, you are starting to see a lot of wealth management firms, at least in the U.S., and obviously George just touched on it as well. He owns three practices, but you're seeing a lot of RIAs that are integrating CPA firms in-house now, right? Because it's becoming like that more kind of family office experience for clients where everything is under one umbrella, so the client interactions are way more robust and kind of that partnership. So have you seen like CPAs are starting to get threatened by, wealth managers or wealth advisors because like they're seeing there's some overlap that's starting to happen? For us, like, we leverage Holistiplan. And I don't know if that's available in Canada, but it's a fintech software in the US that, we can analyze tax returns and give a summary to CPAs. And I think like that provides a lot of value to, to them and doing their clients' tax returns. So, like, are you seeing like that's, CPAs are, I guess, are becoming like more adversarial or not wanting to collaborate with financial advisors because of that reason, and they're seeing like there's some threat or, overlap there. They're trying to infringe and like their subject matter expertise.
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's interesting because for the last several years, there's been a threat to accountants' business, right? And you name it. I mean, overseas work. I mean, all types. Even now with technology, do-it-yourselfers, the ability to add device. So there's a lot of threats there anyway. I can't really say that I've seen a lot of that translate into their desire to not want to collaborate with financial advisors, at least not yet. At the same time, with what you said, I am seeing a lot of RAs, independent advisors, looking to purchase these firms, and that's clearly going to have an impact. It's going to obviously it potentially or obviously increase the firm's revenue, right? Because they have that service and it's in house. But yeah, I do see that hindering their ability to go outside a firm now and developing relationships, right? As they say, hey, I'm RIA Nick Wolf, right? And also, yeah, we do have this great CPA firm within our in-house, but I still want to have more CPA partners. That's probably I could see that getting more challenging. I think the point right now, I think to focus on is that again, even like before that all happens, and AI is going to also change the way this whole dynamic as well. But while this is all happening, I encourage advisors to get good at collaborating for the benefit of their clients. Like there's so much opportunity literally right now to develop a 10 to 12 COI network within the next 12 months. Like literally this time next year, if you do this right, you could have 12 individuals that trust you as a professional. And this whole topic that you're talking about, Nick, it may not even come to fruition for either that advisor or the accounting firm for another 5, 10 years, right? So yeah, I just say focus on how fast can I build this network. That's a good question, though.
And thank you. Yeah, that is
Yeah.
helpful. And then I guess my second question is, so I am a part of, several different professional networking groups, right? And I'm sure you're very aware of provisors. And so, there's, hundreds of CPAs that are in there, and, we each have our own home groups. So what would be your recommendation for trying to build those relationships in like that professional networking setting outside of just, like you said, the coffee meetings, the golf, and is it, you're demonstrating your thought leadership and, in kind of the tax space and how thoughtful you are with your clients and their taxes and, thinking about different tax strategies, or what would be an effective approach?
So I think that's a great question. I think there's kind of 2 points to consider in that. First off, so in that meeting, so in those group sessions, it's I'd get really good at communicating your value quickly and clearly, and also casually, right? So again, not the elevator pitch, not the canned deal, but say, hey, I work with business owners that have 5 million, that deal with 5 minute, 5 to 10 million in revenue, right? And we help them set up a lot of 401ks, right? So and that's kind of how you're communicating. Like that's constantly out of your mouth in group settings, right? So that's the first thing to do in the meeting. But then really where we get on the field here and start really playing the game is taking those relationships from that networking session and actually having, like you mentioned, the coffee or the lunch, and having the one-on-one. And in that session is where you dive deeper with the relationship. We train we work with one advisor out in and if you follow me, you probably see a lot. I try to put a lot of results as anonymous as I can on LinkedIn. But this guy, he took our training, and he was part of a networking group. And literally on 2 separate occasions, he's like, Chris, I took your training and I started to communicate my value. And I took them both to lunch, separately, one attorney, one CPA. And he just built a relationship. But specifically, he told them eye to eye, one-on-one, how his firm, they value education and educating our clients. And that right there was, I'd say, the catalyst for referrals for that individual. So it started at the networking group, large, what have you, but he took it to the individual one-on-one, and that's really Nick, where the results happen.
Thank you.
Brooks, you had your hand up, pal.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my question is like, as you're growing your network of, attorneys and CPAs that you're partnering with, like, I guess they're expecting referrals, right? I mean, do we scatter our clients across all these different partnerships we have? Or I guess that's kind of my struggle is like, if you're comfortable working with someone, like, them, I don't know, like, is that the thought process? Like, if I have 12 different CPAs and attorneys that I'm partnering with, like, am I sending kind of like picking and choosing who I'm sending my clients to have them help them?
Yeah. What's your concern with that? What's your concern? Like, what are you thinking? Kind of behind that question.
I don't know. I guess it just seems. I guess I'm just trying to learn like what the process is there on that because I guess my school of thought is most folks like you said earlier just kind of have their one attorney. I got my guy, right? And I guess that's the different mindset like I'm trying to come out of. And I don't have a lot of partnerships in that world. I have like a CPA and an attorney that I just started to partner with. So I guess it's just what that looks like to grow that network.
Yeah, yeah, great question. So this is your question is just validating that the one of the reasons why you want to build a large network, right? And you actually you hit it. So you got to realize if you have within your client, you have a lot of different clients that relate to different people, that different type of needs, and then at the same time, you've got different accountants, different attorneys with different areas of specialty. So if you let's just look at the accountants for a second. You've got your guy is let's say a 70-year-old accountant, strong business, uh, provides fantastic service, right? But then all of a sudden the client who comes in, and a 28-year-old couple. And although you can connect them, you can connect them to your guy and get them good tax returns done, right? If you had the CPA, maybe the 32-year-old CPA, that maybe that was also married as well, that personality wise could link up. Yeah, I hear all the time, like a lot of times you may give advisors give referrals to the CPA and they interview them. They say, oh, I'm going to go with that person, right? Just because they like them better. So to answer your question, the thought process is have multiple different specialties and even personalities, even of within the accountants and lawyers to really be able to pair up your clients and add the best value when you refer them out. That's kind of like the mindset.
Does that answer your question, Brooks?
Yeah.
Can I add something,
Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah, it does.
Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So let's say because one of the pushbacks that I get from advisors is, well, almost I only have like 30 clients, so I can't possibly have four or five. And I'm pretty sure, Chris, you mentioned like three or four different professionals. So it's like if you get three or four professionals times three or four occupations, like there's your 12. So you're not looking for 12, you're not looking for 12 accountants or CPAs, Brooks. But where we lose sight of things sometimes is I only have 35 clients. So how could I have four people to refer people to? But then my question to them is, well, do you have friends? Do you have family? Do you have prospects? Because one thing that I believe is a huge opportunity that advisors miss is actually linking up your prospects with your COIs. Because if that COI now does a good job with your prospect, that prospect looks as you as the person that set that up. So by default, you're still getting credit for teaming up that prospect with your with the accountant. And if they're doing a good job, which they should be, that will lead them closer to becoming your client as well. So don't look at it as I have 30 clients. Look at it as I have 300 clients, prospects, family, and friends that I can refer to all these people. So kind of broaden your horizon. And I love where Chris is going with this because I'm thinking if like Chris said, a year from now, if you have 12 COIs and all they did was give you two referrals a year, like I just think this through. If you have one accountant that gives you two referrals a year, it's not going to make a huge difference in your overall productivity. You have 12 accountants that all they do is give you two a year. Guys, that's 24 clients. Like you're already in the top 1% of advisors when it comes to productivity. So I think this is great. So yeah, thanks, Chris. Didn't mean to kind of take over the your
No,
presentation.
spot on. You're digging up some really good, some rich soil on that, man. Rich dirt with that one. So I get asked a lot of times, what's like the biggest mistake, right? Like what's one of the biggest mistakes or mindset shifts that I need to see, or that I see within amongst financial advisors. And again, we've talked to probably thousands of them at this point, but is that I'd say it's the concept that a good accountant may only have one time a year opportunity a year to refer you a client. And in that opportunity, he's typically or she's going to give 3 people, right? Because they doesn't want to appear biased, right? So you may have one opportunity to get on the list of 3. So while you're giving referrals and hoping and expecting them to come in return, it might not be until August until that opportunity comes up. So to Ermos's point, by law of numbers, if you have 12 that can give you 1 referral a year, well, now shift to the selfish side of your revenue side here. And when you build out a network of 12, you can by law of numbers, you can actually increase the probability that you'll actually experience the benefit. So that's so huge what you're saying, Armos. All right, cool. So I can finish run the last and we can jump back into some more questions before we wrap up.
Perfect.
Right, but this is so cool. This is good. All right, so we talked about effectively communicating your value. The next point I'd say is increase your number of COI meetings. Right now, I want to touch on the false belief here that I can't manage that many relationships. Right, that's part of this whole concept. Well, you can, all right, if you just focus on a couple, maybe 1 or 2 a month, right? It's not that difficult. But number 7, increasing your number of COI meetings is going to allow you to potentially build trust and build professional trust with more individuals. And the ones that you've met, right? The ones that you've given referrals to, make sure you meet them. Like, make sure if I ask a lot of times. So you've given referrals. When's the last time you met them? Oh, I met them 2 years ago in my office. 2 years ago, right? Meet them again. Right? A lot has changed. So we encourage and we teach in our trainings. If you look at your calendar, next 30 days, 60 days, how many of those days, how many different COIs are you having a scheduled meeting with, and increase that. All right. And then now we get into process here with number 8 is preparing clients for an introduction. This is the gold right here, right? I won't spend a lot of time here, but the best way to go from 0 to 17 new introductions is to have your clients do that. Right. And if you don't have that many clients yet, then there's other ways to do it, but you want to prepare someone to introduce you. And there's so many ways and skills you can develop to do that, but that's what we encourage. You want to get more introductions. And then number 9 is they must see you in action. They really need to see you work. If they can see you working, right, then that builds professional trust. Number 10 is communication is vital, right? If, a lot of times when we were starting out, I was hearing from financial advisors, almost that, CPAs, they don't want to collaborate. Like attorneys, they don't want to meet me or all that. And then I started interviewing them and talking with them, and they says, Chris, we do want to do that. And so I learned to encourage you all to communicate more, increase the communication. It's so vital. And number 11 is be a resource. This kind of goes back to Dave's question. He's already getting the referrals, which is great. But if you're giving referrals and haven't received them, look for ways to be a resource, especially when you have that initial meeting, and then simply deliver that. And as you become a resource, they'll see you as more valuable, and you'll go from being the salesperson to the trusted professional. And then finally, the last point, and perhaps one of the biggest besides the first one, is your words matter. And your words are basically like your life when it comes to this. And meaning, I've heard so many financial advisors say, I'm giving referrals and I'm not getting them. Or they're saying it's so difficult to work with attorneys. Or they're saying attorneys never give me, or they never give referrals. And this type of language kind of gets thrown around amongst your circles at your firms, and even maybe you say it yourself. And I just want to encourage you to realize that your words will literally cement what happens to you, right? And I don't want to go. I'm not going to go too deep on here, but if you instead of speaking that it's so difficult, you can say, hey, listen, Irmo's brought this great trainer, Chris Jordan, onto a call, and I'm so excited. And it's so easy to get referrals. Like I'm going to try something new, and I know it's going to be great getting referrals. Right? Just change kind of your whole conversation in terms of maybe you can change a little bit and do a couple different strategies, but CPAs give referrals, attorneys give referrals, and you can get them, but just change your words. All right. And so that's almost that's basically kind of the 12 main points. Again, we can continue with us a little bit of Q&A, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time as well.
There's a question in the chat from Andy. So how would you suggest that advisors extend an invitation to COI clients for upcoming events like seminars and webinars?
Just tell them, invite them. Just tell them you want to come. Excuse me.
I was more saying, do you recommend that? Like, does that actually work?
Yeah. Have you, or do you suggest? Yeah. So we're training a group in Chicago, right? Morgan Stanley, Chicago, and it's actually a new advisor group. It actually there's a lot of newer advisors. Let's say 3 to 5 years, but actually there were 10 to 15 years in that training as well. Huge training in Chicago, Morgan Stanley. One of the advisors, they were having a client event, and this was in the summertime, and a couple of the clients couldn't show. I guess because of heat, some health issues, what have you. So this advisor, she's kind of like scrambling. Oh my God, what do I do? We paid this, but we want to fill seats. So she has the brilliant idea to invite the CPA that she's been giving referrals to for the last 2 years and never received any in return. CPA comes to the client event. And again, I think it was probably just an email, nothing fancy on how, but CPA attends the event. The CPA is interviewing the clients, quote unquote, interviewing the clients, right? And she's the team, the financial advisor and their team, they're presenting and in front of at the podium while everyone's eating dinner, all that stuff. The next day, the financial advisor opens up her computer. She has an email. She gets 2 referrals from that CPA, right? I want to say, I think it was about north of maybe $2-3 million worth of AUM. But the point is, she had spent 2 years, but she had never gotten a referral. But that's the value of that, of doing it that way.
That makes so much sense. I always tell advisors too, like, don't just tell, show them. So now I'm going to kind of put you in the spot here, Chris. So, can you maybe mention a success story that shows how your strategies transform an advisor COI relationship? Like, give us an example of where here's the advisor, you gave them this strategy, they ran with it, and then it created this result.
Yeah. So, one of my favorite examples, oh my gosh, one of my favorite examples is a guy that went from 20 years in the business, no referrals from a CPA ever, to about 20 new clients, like over 12, 15, 12, 13 million in new assets within 24 months from 6 different CPAs. So first 20 years as an advisor, no referrals ever. Maybe 25, 30 referrals, which led to 20 clients, right? And about 12 and a half, 13 million in new assets in 24 months. What did he do? So the strategy that I suggested that very few people do, I'm trying to get him to do more, is he went to his client list. He had about 100 clients. He went through his client list and he simply started to say, contact them. He would contact 5 a day. I'd like to meet your CPA. All right. Now, what I just said to you, if there's a couple of you on this call that will actually do that, and it'll change the success in your career. But that strategy led to him doing 5 a day, and literally, I'd say after maybe about a year, he had said he had gone through maybe about 70, 75 clients. We call that a preparation. And it's basically letting a client know you like the intro or letting them know I think it makes sense from it's really simple, but it's just preparing a client for an introduction for them. He goes through that process. He has like 17 different meetings with different CPAs that he's never ever met. The result was about 13 million, north of 13 million in new assets. So that's one of our favorite success stories.
And that's such a simple ask. Do you
So
think it's
simple. It's so simple. It's so simple. It's not even done.
yeah, well,
It's so
that's
simple.
true. I mean, I can just see you asked the question. Do you think it's a good idea that I collaborate with your accountant to make sure we're not missing anything, to make sure we can actually save you a few $1,000s in taxes? Would that make sense? Would that be beneficial? Like, no client is ever going to say, no, I don't think it's a good idea that I should save a few $1,000s in taxes. So if they're already clients, the trust is there. I guarantee you, if you ask for 100 introductions, you'll probably get 100 at least contact information.
Yeah. Kind of, and here's the thing that I see, and hopefully this helps someone on this call or in your network. There's a belief that there's an awkward sometimes there's an awkwardness that a financial advisor has to ask their client for an introduction because it kind of mentally it goes in the brain of asking for a referral. And like I think if you looked at like different studies, right, it's like I think it was a Dalbar study that said like 85% of clients said that they would give referrals to their financial advisor, but like only like 12% actually asked. Or it was just like it was like a huge disparity in terms of financial advisors actually asking clients because it can be awkward because you're going to face rejection. So the mindset almost is that, oh, I don't want to ask my client for something else because they might reject me. And that's what stops them from doing that simple ask. And it stops them from ever really exceeding or succeeding in this area in a big way.
All right, let's open up to questions, guys. Here's your chance.
I have a
Sorry,
question
did
for
you
you,
address
Chris.
George's thing there? George's question?
No,
No, not that, not you, George, the other George.
sorry.
G. Or did I miss that?
I
Sorry, I heard
believe
some.
it's in
Hello, can you hear me?
the chat.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah. So I had a message in the chat there. So I'm moving to Toronto from Vancouver later this year in October.
Nice.
So I don't have a network over in Ontario. So I was wondering what can I do over the next 6 to 7 months to prepare for my move by building COI connections while living in Vancouver.
Do you have any COI relationships currently? Do you know
In
any accountants
Vancouver?
or attorneys anywhere? Do you know any accountants or attorneys anywhere?
In Vancouver, yes. I do
Okay,
have a
are you
couple.
pretty good relationships? Like
Yep.
connected?
Yep.
Okay, maybe some of our friends even.
Yeah, in Ontario I have friends, but none of them are accountants or attorneys.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So if I was coaching you, I would probably give you two lists, but I just for the sake of this call, I would just it's really simple. I would just simply start to ask your accountants that you know, your attorneys that you know, maybe your mortgage professionals or maybe bankers or any other kind of professional connections that you have. And your script is this. I'm moving to Vancouver soon, and I'm looking for good CPAs to refer my clients to when the need comes up. And that is your script. And I would just have you say that dozens of times to multiple COIs that you have. You can literally do that. You know anyone in the US? You know anyone all over Canada? Anywhere you say, and do you know any? I'm looking for a good CPA in Vancouver. I'm looking for a good estate attorney in Vancouver. I'm looking for a good divorce attorney, a real estate attorney in Vancouver. So that is like your language, and just you want to just say that dozens of times to as many of those professionals that you know. And I think in the next 6 months, you should, especially with tax season, it'll be beyond that. You will start to get introduced. And even if it's like in the middle of tax season, I wouldn't overlook this. So don't tell yourself that, oh, well, because it's tax season, I can't meet anyone, or they're going to be too busy. So let me hold off on taking a step. Get the introduction now. Let that CPA in Vancouver respond and say, hey, I'd love to meet you, when I get out there, or what have you. Like or have a Zoom call or what have you after tax season. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
While we're waiting for the next question, just so you know, I put Chris's LinkedIn profile link in the chat. I highly recommend that every single person follows him. I know I do, and every single day, I think maybe even twice a day, Chris posts all kinds of like little tidbits of information on how to get more COIs. So well worth connecting with Chris. Guys, any other questions? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
I have a question.
All right, let's hear it.
So Chris, what would be your feedback on, saying, a tenured CPA who's been in the industry for 15, 20 years, who has a robust book of clients existing, and my assumption would be that they already have their referral partners. Are you recommending that, we try to, connect with COIs that may be a little bit more, younger on the younger side in their career or profession, that, they're obviously they're probably looking to build their own networks of referral partners as well? Or do you still think it's fruitful to go after those, seasoned professionals that have been doing this for 20, 30 years? They don't really go out and do much networking themselves, or if they do, they just use it as more of a social to get out of their own house or office. Is that like a productive use of time to do that?
Yeah, oh man, Nick, that's a great question. Yeah, so we answer this question. So when we built our online course, right, that was one of the main questions that kind of was coming up in our interviews and in our RAs, and people were talking about that. So I think it's lecture 4 in our COI course where we literally just kind of dive into that in terms of like what type of COI to focus on. And I was like, that's a big point, because you would think that I should go after maybe the more established, the largest ones, more tenured, more successful. But oftentimes it's the ones that are growing that make better partners, right? Exactly for the reasons that you said. But on the flip side, again, each case is a case by case, right? So generally, I think the latter. I would probably look for people that are more growing, maybe earlier in the career, as opposed to even more seasoned and tenured. But then also, if there's an opportunity within the if so maybe they have he or she has junior accountants, or maybe there's a small firm there where you can make the connection, you can have the lunch, you can take the time to invest with them. They want to get out of the house, right? You can take that time, build that relationship, and then ultimately start to partner with their juniors, right? Or the other accounts. Again, case by case, but there's some analysis that kind of goes into every relationship. But I think generally, I would be looking like laser focused, like exactly what I want, which is CPAs or even attorneys that are growing their business and that they're more planners. So they're not transactional, but they're planners. They'll be much better COI partners for you.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
All right, guys,
Yeah, absolutely.
we're near the end. Any last questions before we let Chris go?
Just a
We
big
gave it all today. There's nothing else to learn about this topic. We're all done.
Go ahead, George.
no,
Go for it.
just a big thank you. It was very, very good. Very informative.
Yeah, Chris, other than LinkedIn, is there another way for people to get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can go to the site CLJ Advisory. We do have a course that's there. Anybody that we coach, I always say, you have to take the course first, right? And even when we do big trainings, because the course that we created, it builds the foundation. And again, cljadvisory.com, that's our website. But that is going to give you even more so than the how to. It's the what I found is that the mindset is so important. So the mindset, um, and then having a proper understanding of this whole relationship. That's the major part of this. And then once you have the right mindset in terms of working with these accountants, then your approach, it's almost like the steps are easy. We can teach the steps, pretty quickly, but it's having that mindset. But you can go to cljadvisory.com. You can follow me on Instagram as well. We're on YouTube, all over the place.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much on behalf of everybody here. I know this was eye-opening, lots of great stuff to take away, and I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, Chris. I just thank you.
Sounds great. Hope to see y'all soon. Good luck.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.